The important thing isn't can you read music, it's can you hear it? Can you hear the music, Robert? Yes, I can.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the After School Cinema Club. Today, I am your host, Jose. I'm the director of the group. I'm joined by the wonderful Vaughn and the lovely Dylan. Today, we're going to talk about the Oscars. Boys, big night, Hollywood's biggest night. What do you guys think?
Man, I they did it right. They did it right. And I don't know if it was something about like doing it an hour earlier that like helped a lot to me, but I was totally into everything. Especially the format, but I don't want to like hog too much space. Dylan, what about you?
I felt the Kenergy. I definitely agree with the same sentiments. It was, I would honestly probably say, the best Oscars show in terms of just like presentation that I can remember. I mean, there's probably others that have been better, but as someone that's probably watched a decent amount of the last few Oscars, it was comfortably the best one that I can remember.
Now,
Yeah.
I unfortunately couldn't watch it live, but from the reaction online, on Twitter, on Instagram, people seem to have loved it. There were a lot of surprises, right? Is there anything you guys say stood out?
Uh yeah, from the jump, I love the format and I really hope it like played well or tested well or whatever. But the idea, I'd love to see if how they adapt it for other categories. Before the acting categories, having five previous winners come out and give flowers to all the nominees, it really did. It really did help with the subjectivity. And I know when we were talking about our predictions in the prediction episode, um, just recognizing that just because you don't win doesn't mean you're a bad film or you're a bad actor or you're not worthy. Like I know the Oscars is, the be all end all for a lot of people, but the idea that we to even have made it this far is an accomplishment, and to see people get their flowers in that moment, it was like my favorite part of the whole show.
Yeah, I think looking into it, I think they had tried that once before. Like they had tried it, like I guess sometime in the mid 2000s, and they've just never done it again. But yeah, it was cool. It was unique. It was different. The only, I guess, like complaint or critique that I would have is I still wanted to see the clips. Like that's the one thing of like with the acting. I love that they had these people to come out and speak. Granted, the clips a lot of time is just like whatever scene were they yelling, or it's like it's not even like necessarily like a good inclination of what the actual acting performance was. But that was like the one thing of, and maybe not as much for us, like we've seen almost every single movie, but like Vaughn and I were at an Oscar party, and like there was someone next to us that was like after almost every single thing was announced, was like, oh well, like what, did you like it? Like was it good? And like because if they're not seeing a lot of the stuff, like then it's one of those things of just that doesn't add that much time just to throw in like an extra 30-second clip or something like that, even if it's not for every single category. For the acting at least, like I think you have to do it.
I don't know. I
Huh.
feel like it did kind of make it run long. Like as I was scrolling through some of the clips online, the acting ones were like 7, 8, 10 minutes long, and the other ones were really short, 2, 3 minute clips. So maybe for a social media audience, it would have been a bad idea or a good idea. I'm not sure what their intentionality behind it was. I do feel like it meant to signify unity in a sense, like, hey, this is your legacy. These are the giants that you guys are now being a part of. Because I can think of everybody delivering Divine Joy's Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Like each and every one of those women in their own roles has exemplified women, what an actress could be. And so having that emotion kind of elevate the supporting actors, um, role. It's interesting. I wonder who gets to make these decisions over at the Academy.
Yeah, and that begs the question, who is the Oscars for?
Hmm.
Because I hadn't thought about it literally until this moment, but to your point, Dylan, like we've even this podcast, like we are cinephiles. We are going to go to the movies and see almost everything as much as we possibly can. So it is, it's a great night to celebrate the stuff we saw. But for and if I remember, if I think it's the same person that you're referring to that was at the party, they have a 1-year old, so like they've got their hands full. So
Oh, I didn't know
is
that. Now I feel bad.
no, 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 but like that is just to say, like, okay, is the Oscars an opportunity for people to maybe be enticed to go back and watch stuff? Like, are we inviting casual viewers to also enjoy some cinema, or is it just for those of us who do see a bunch of stuff, to celebrate the stuff we already saw?
I feel like they try to have their cake and eat it too with that. You know what I mean? Because I don't think you
Yeah,
have like as many of the performances. I don't think you have like some of the comedy bits. Like I don't think you have like John Mulaney come out and do like a 2 minute stand up routine if you're not trying to get people to like watch it, or like you're gonna have John Cena come out and be naked. Like I feel like if you're gonna do those things, it's because you are expecting maybe some people that aren't as like into it, and I think it just makes the show more entertaining overall.
yeah.
But to your point, um, to both of your points, haven't the Oscars been steadily declining? Like I'm trying to look up the ratings because last I checked, past after COVID was kind of done, that really kind of like almost was the straw that broke the camel's back because people already stopped caring about network television. But I feel like I remember reading somewhere that steadily it's just been like it's now more of a conversation of should this even come back next year, like what is this even for, because people are no longer being engaged. um Although that Chris Rock thing was pretty big, so I wonder if that kind of gave it a second win.
I can
Hmm.
jump in, Vaughn, if you or if you,
No,
because
please, please, immediately
I
do
think
it.
it's multifaceted. I think that it's a big thing that gets talked about in sports media is like, oh, like ratings are down. Like basically everything other than like the NFL has like steadily decreased. The NFL has even decreased as well. I don't think it's as much as like, oh, hey, people are less interested. I think it's a combination of things. First and foremost is like cord cutting. That's going to be like a main thing. Is that just there's less people that are just like paying for cable, so that's automatically going to bring things down. I think like 2 3 years ago, because of the pandemic and there just weren't as many movies and people weren't going to see the movies, they were less interested in the box office. I'm expecting there's going to be a bump this year just because I think that like Barbie and Oppenheimer both made $1 billion and were heavily involved in the movie, and or in the Oscars, I should say. So there was probably going to be just a little bit more buzz around that. And people knew that Ryan Gosling was going to perform, and they knew that Billie Eilish was going to perform, and so I feel like there'd be some extra eyes. But I think it's one of those things of like, yeah, the viewership is going down, but it's a little bit of I feel like it's a little overrated.
Yeah, and I think we also have to. This is just media in general. We have to consider like what counts as viewership. Like Jose, for reasons could not see the Oscars, but you still went back and watched some clips. Like how does that get factored in or tallied in terms of people who are participating in the event of the Oscars, if not watching the actual event when it happens live?
I think from like the television like scope, it's like numbers of actual people tuning in to watch this event. In just doing some quick research, it did look like this year was the highest in the past four. So since that like slow decline post COVID, it's been on the upswing, and probably to Dylan's point is because of Barbie and because of Ryan Gosling performing "I'm Just Ken." Um, I do want to ask: did you guys see that Will Smith petitioned the Academy to go see him perform, and the Academy like denied him?
What?
Wait, perform what?
He wanted to see I'm Just Ken live?
Mm-hmm. Because he's been for what 10 years, right? That was like last year or the year before.
Yeah, that was 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
2 years ago. Yeah.
Um, dang, two down, eight to go, I guess. Uh, and they straight up said no.
Yeah. It does also
Wait,
look like in this Variety article. Um, I mean, they mentioned it near the end, but I guess there was an episode of Abbott Elementary that was shown after the fact, and that
Yeah,
kind of had its biggest view because of the Oscars. So I wonder if in ratings does that push like these other forms of entertainment like television. I love Abbott, by the way. I should be like, I don't want to sound like I'm not a fan. Um, but yeah, what do you guys think?
I think you're onto something because I know a lot of the marketing for Abbott Elementary for the last 2 weeks or so has been reminding people, hey, we're not going to be on a regularly scheduled night. We're going to be on right after the Oscars. And then as we got to a couple days before, they were like, well, actually, we're going to have somebody who's nominated for an Oscar in the show. And even I saw stills in some of the ads with the emoji star covering up the person who was like who's the special guest. um and yeah, it I think about that, and I think about and I'm sure there's other examples, but like John Cena and his involvement specifically, who, he's a wrestler and an actor as well, but like nothing, unless I'm forgetting a very pivotal piece of art of his, nothing he's done has been like close to the Oscars really. But he's an entertaining person. A lot of people, like, he's going to be a reason people will tune in and enjoy it. So yeah, I think there is this like push to get more eyes.
Was it known that he was going to appear?
That part I don't know. I don't think so.
they probably announced like some of the people that are going to be involved, but I don't remember. It's not like I'm really going to pay attention to that either, but I don't like remember them announcing it. I do remember the Abbott Elementary thing, and then eventually it was like, oh, it's Bradley Cooper because he's from Philly, and like they kind of just like leaned in heavy to that. I also just looking at it, so the viewership doubled. Last year it was 9 million. This year it was
Yeah.
20 million. So it
Whoa.
literally doubled, which I think also just speaks to probably a lot more people going to the movies this year
Hmm.
compared to last year.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. I know you posted, Dylan, a picture of the Tenet IMAX reshoots or re-release, and it was full. It was packed. Yeah, even here in SF, trying to get tickets for the Dune re-release was also incredibly hard to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dune made $30 million in the IMAX rerun.
What?
Yeah, it made like that's more than like probably what like half of the movies that were nominated made.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like not even not in like trying to shade any of the other, just in the sense of like those like bigger box office movies, like when those movies get nominated, there's going to be an increase in viewership. People wanted to see Barbie win. How many people at our Oscars party were like really upset that the only thing that won was original song, you
Right.
know?
Too
To
true.
the point of upsetting people, do you guys want to talk about what you did not like this year?
Oh.
Not nominations, not nominations. We're gonna get to nominations later. Just more about the production, or maybe like, just the spectacle of it. Like, was there something that you maybe wish could have been done better?
Yes, for sure. And it's, you know, the Oscars has the benefit of watching every other award show happen in this season and learn from it. And I'd say like Jimmy Kimmel did a really good job as host. And I think about who was it? Joe Coy, who did the Golden Globes?
Mm.
And how
Yeah.
awful a lot of his jokes landed, and him even blaming him, saying like, the stuff you're laughing at is the stuff I wrote, the stuff you're not laughing at is what my writing team wrote. And I'm like, god, like, way to throw them under the bus. But I say all that to say Joe Coy had his whole moment where he like had some distasteful jokes about Taylor Swift getting a lot of attention, and like in comparison to the NFL, and like Taylor Swift is here and blah blah blah. I didn't like the Jimmy Kimmel's bit about Robert Downey Jr. and like he had a joke about drug abuse. I'm like,
Downey didn't seem to
that's
like it either.
yeah, and I mean, and
Yeah, like
he's
Downey's like
so
over here
charismatic.
telling him to like finish it off.
Yeah, it's it wasn't tasteful at all, and I don't like that kind of humor, especially if like don't don't treat somebody's like trauma or past experience like that. I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I think he made I missed it when we were watching it, but I guess he made some kind of joke about like poor things and the amount of sex scenes. And then, it's one of the things I saw from Twitter, but apparently the camera cut to Emma Stone and she was like telling her husband that he's a prick. And it was one of those things of like, I can't tell if that was like, if someone on Twitter was like putting two different clips together. Because it was just like, it was like a screen recording from someone's phone, or it was someone like just recording it from their phone. It wasn't like a live feed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things of like, I do think Kimmel did a good job. Like I legitimately laughed at times, and I'm Kimmel agnostic. I don't hate the fact that he's a host, and I don't love him either. But
Kimmel agnostic.
Sounds like you hate him, dude.
No, because some people get really upset when he was announced as the host. People are like, "Ugh, him again," and it's just like, "Oh, he's decent."
It's like any of those. It's just any of those late night talk show host guys are just so, I don't know, bland, safe, especially with
very safe.
Yeah, very safe. I think that's probably the only reason why he keeps getting invited back.
Yeah, and I will say, of all the hosts of any show, not that we're doing this, except this is maybe the second plug for the After School Music podcast. Trevor Noah is, I think, an excellent host for the Grammys. I enjoy his jokes and his tie-ins, and I think there's like he has an investment in music. Like he seems interested in the job he has as well. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that.
It makes me think of like Mulaney, when Mulaney just for like a minute was doing jokes about Field of Dreams, and it's like, oh, this guy like cares about movies. I would love for him. I'm a huge John Mulaney fan, so for him to host it would be awesome. But I don't know if they would go. I don't know if they're going to go another comedian route after what happened, a couple of years ago. I feel like the Academy would be really scared that it's going to happen again, and they're just going to like constantly give it to the late night guys.
I just hope Jimmy Fallon doesn't host it. I'm a fan of his Universal Studio Tour, but that's about it.
Yeah, same actually.
Dylan, you've been to Universal, right?
What'd you say? No, I've
never
never
been. You've never been to Universal?
The park, not the park.
No. And there's the silence. Okay, that makes sense.
I know that it's like a thing. Like I know that like the tour is a thing. I don't know if it's like Jimmy Kimmel as like a celebrity, but I also know that like young up and coming actors will sometimes like their first job in LA is like as one of those tour guides. So I couldn't tell if that's what that was or if it was like he has a celebrity tour.
It's like I mean the tours is scripted through the back lot, and there's scenes on the tram where you get to know a little bit slight history of like what Universal used to be, and he's kind of like the second host because there's a scene where they go through Six Points, Texas, and there's just a bit with Jimmy Kimmel in it. But then the host actually says this was actually, back when people used to come out here and see them. They used to have bleachers on the side, and people used to watch westerns, or it'd be like what else is he in? I think he's doing like Earthquake when you go through like the Earthquake simulation. I think he's doing something, but then they reference like special effects. It's very interesting. If we get enough patrons, we should all take a trip to Universal Studios.
That's right. We got to figure out patrons and also sponsors.
We got DraftKings
to come.
Remember? They're just waiting for our final results from the first episode to cash us out.
All good.
It's just so many views. It's just taken forever to just get the.
It takes a while to tally. Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, that's Kimmel and the tricky jokes was like my only thing that felt weird or off. Um, for the most part, though, I absolutely adored it. Especially the bit with John Cena and like to tie in like a naked man running and then like we're gonna like announce costume design and he has no costume like thus proving the point. I thought that whole section was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I saw that clip online. Very clever. I do wonder if it was a tie into the Ricky Stenicki movie because that
I think it's got
that
to be.
marketing has been like so like they've been nonstop since that movie's been was announced, right? Like he made an
Yeah.
OnlyFans. That's a little sus.
Oh.
Hey, be sex positive.
Yeah, Vaughn.
Oh.
Hey,
I
there go
did
the emojis.
I
I have to
I
turn
did
that
love it.
off.
I would say that my favorite part overall, and we'll probably talk about this later when it comes to song. I mean, I'm Just Ken was unbelievable. Just like easily, in my opinion, the best part of the night. I know Vaughn is going to have thoughts, and we can maybe talk about that later. But that was above and beyond my favorite part.
I
Well,
think you're tipping it off too much. Like it's okay. It's an okay song to me. It's fine.
well, let's get into it then. Do you want to start with who won the best song? Because I have thoughts too, but you know, it sounds like you guys have a back and forth that's been brewing in the background.
Well, if y'all remember from when we had episode one, we talked about who we think or who we would want to win, who we think would win. Uh, Dylan and I both picked songs from Barbie because there were two songs nominated from Barbie. I picked "What Was I Made For" with Billie Eilish and Phineas. He picked "I'm Just Ken" with Ryan Gosling and I guess technically Mark Ronson as well. Um, and I was right. Uh, and that feels good to say. That's one of my favorite songs. Not "What Was I Made For," although I love that song too. But me hearing that I'm right is a nice song to hear. Um, but yeah, it. I think the people got it right. That's all I have to say about it. Until Dylan has something to say, and then I'll have more to say about it.
The main gripe that I have in this, it has nothing to do with the Billie Eilish song itself. Like I think that the song is good. I just don't really care for professional musicians getting these wins. Like when you look at like what like some of the like four out of the last five winners, it's like her, Elton John, and then like Billie Eilish twice because she got it for like one of the Bond songs too. And it's just
Hmm.
like I just that to me just doesn't seem interesting. And like half the time it's for a song that is like either right at the end or it's a credit song. And it's just like it to me it's that's not as interesting as like having Ryan Gosling actually out there singing. And then when he actually performed it, I mean like Billie Eilish herself was like losing it, laughing at it. Same thing with Margot Robbie. Like everyone was like getting up and like jumping around and stuff. So to me, that would mean that it's like kind of that's the moment people are going to remember. People are going to remember that song way before they remember what was I made for.
I hate to come in as an objective third party, but I could see both sides of the coin. But my the reason why I say this is because I want to know again, give us transparency here. What categorizes as original song? Because is it original that an artist is performing it, or did they just spend like a crap ton of money to get some professional artist to create a song for this movie? Because what was I made for is it's not a credit song, but does come near the end of the movie. But just the emotion attached to the song, but in and out of the cinema, like if it just comes on the radio or it comes on my playlist, like I'm gonna vibe to it. I'm gonna feel a certain way. But if I just Ken comes on, I'm like, oh haha, it's like a Lonely Island song. Like you could only really take Lonely Island songs so seriously before start to discredit what they really are. But I'm not surprised. I'm just Ken didn't win, but you know, I don't want to pick a side here.
Oh, I'm not
It sounds
surprised it
like you
didn't win.
picked my side.
I'm just upset it didn't win.
But I think what you're addressing, Dylan, or like a part of what this is like, and this is to your point too, Jose. What is best? Like, what do we mean when we say best? And like, I think from the film's world, what was I made for? Definitely the best original song. From our world, I think there's a very strong argument for I'm Just Ken. And I think the idea of like artistic worth and like public opinion and value, that is the like the back and forth. And I think that's a recurring theme here about like who who are we who are we addressing and who are we serving when we rate all of this content. So yeah, I mean, I from the story, the world of the story, I love what was I made for, and I can appreciate I'm Just Ken. And I did go back because, fun fact, at said Oscars party, I happened to step out to use the restroom, and when I came back, I'm Just Ken was just wrapping up, and I was like, oh, all right, cool. And Dylan was not very happy with me that I
I
was
told him I was
just
going to
so
fight him.
nonchalant. And I'm like, I don't know why, but it, it maybe missed me, and I think I need to rewatch Barbie so I can like maybe have a newer appreciation for I'm Just Ken. But I will say I did go back and watch the performance this morning, and it is incredible. And what I did not notice, because I obviously had missed the beginning, was that we had uh, Simu Liu, and we had
Hmm.
like literally all the other Kens showed back up for just to be background. Like literally didn't do anything else. Didn't have like there was like one moment where we see them all come down a line, but that was like that made me appreciate Barbie. It made me a little bit more sad about how things worked out for the film in the long run because like it didn't get as many nominations as it maybe should have, and didn't get all the love because I could tell in that moment like, oh no, this had like significant cultural impact, and this cast and crew have a bond that can never be broken. To get that many actors to do that bit, not just for the film when you're getting that check, but to like come back for the Oscars and commit to the bit all over again, speaks volumes to not just the song, but the film as a whole.
Maybe a conversation for the after school music club.
Coming soon to a podcast near you, I guess.
The after school podcast network. Thoughts?
I'm in. Sponsored by DraftKings.
Um, if we want to tackle the Barbie kind of snub, um, do you want to talk about best costumes? Also picking back onto John Cena.
I think it was Poor Things that won, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
Barbie was also on there, right? Was it hair and make? No, costume.
Of the like snubs for Barbie, I actually for me it wasn't costuming. Not that I thought the costuming on Barbie was bad. Production design was the one where I was like, "Oh, I can't believe this is not the one that Barbie would have won," because I think that also went to Poor
That
Things.
also went to Poor
Yeah.
Things.
And that was the one where I was like, I think some of the production and design in Poor Things is really cool, but some of it is also just like there are some bad CGI shots in there. And so it was just kind of like a mix of, like I guess okay, this does look good, but like the dream houses in Barbie were really cool, and like the little transition shots as they're going from the real world to Barbie world is cool, and like the way that they had the cubicle little offices set up in the Mattel office also was really cool. So I figured that was going to win, and then I guess for,
Yeah.
for whatever reason the Academy, didn't.
I literally shouted when they announced Poor Things, but the Dream House. Like, um, yeah, I because this is all subjective anyway, and it's people casting votes, and we'll talk about who those people are a little bit later. But I like for that reason, I'm just like, y'all's just not getting it. It's just not, and I don't know necessarily why it's not resonating, but this also, not to get too deep, um, makes me wonder because it does seem like there's certain darlings, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but it does seem like the Oscars does have certain darlings and favorites, and thus also uh, nemesis, I guess, or you know, black sheep, if you will. And yeah, I don't know what like Greta did or what the situation is, but yeah, it seemed, or and I don't know if it's Yorgos being maybe super endearing and a lot of these like parties and things leading up to the Oscars or leading up to people casting their votes. And that's not to say that I didn't like Poor Things. I did enjoy it, but it's just that baffles me when we think about the amount of work that went into both projects. And yeah.
I wonder, just in having this conversation, going back to who the Oscars are for. Um, Poor Things is, I feel like, a much more mature movie than Barbie, and so do they want to say that because I mean it's a black tie event, everyone's dressed to the nines, tuxedos, suits, dresses, everyone's so glammed up to have this big event, but then they don't feel like they need to legitimize a toy. I wonder if that conversation is something that they, well, while they're casting their vote, or if they're like rubbing elbows and playing the Game of Thrones and politicizing who gets to vote for what. I wonder if that's kind of something that they use to throw dirt on Barbie's name, because yeah, I thought it would have gone one of those two for sure, production or hair, but both of them went to Poor Things.
I think historically comedies, I mean, last year Everything Everywhere All at Once like won a ton, so it's not like the smartest thing to say after what happened last year, but normally comedies just don't perform that well. Granted, Poor Things, I mean, it's more of like a dramedy. It's there's comedic aspects to it, but it's also much more mature. So I think that had a little bit of it too, and just like historically the biggest movies don't necessarily do all that well like at the box office. And I don't know if that's because it's Hollywood not wanting to cater to that weirdly, even though that's what pays the bills, or if it's just like a thing of they wanted to go somewhere else, or if yeah for whatever reason if Yorgos is just for right now he's who they're focused on.
Yeah. I don't want to say.
Say it. You're on the record.
Well, since I'm on the record, I wonder how much cast and power plays into this. And like to your point, Dylan, about like not necessarily wanting to recognize a blockbuster hit in the same way, because maybe if you've quote unquote dumbed it down, then it's not art anymore, or it's you're just it's fodder for the masses. I I also wonder from just a human makeup standpoint, is it that it's easier to give it to this man versus this woman? And then I think about, okay, well, Greta's a white woman, but also you're in not just this category, but just like across the board, because it does, Poor Things won a lot of stuff. And I'm wondering, although he's Greek, and depending on the lens and the space, Greek will count as whiteness or it won't. If it counts enough to give it to the man that is like close enough to whiteness, at the cost of not just like the work, but at the cost of like giving it to a woman. I don't know. I'm sitting on it, and I don't want to be like everything's racist and terrible, but everything is racist and terrible. Um, but that leaves me wondering, and I don't necessarily need an answer, but it is something that just like that hangs over all of this for me.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't believe we just ruined our ticket to the Academy by saying that they're racist. You know, that I'm sure they were signing those letters, sending them our way.
To I guess the one little pushback that I would have is I do think Greta Gerwig has she has three directorial she directed three movies. I think all three have gotten Best Picture noms, from like Little Women to Lady Bird to this. So I think at the very least, it's like one of those things of they're at least like recognizing the work that she's done. I hand up, I don't know that many other women that have ever done that. If there are any other women that have done that, where it's like their first three or even three total, to be completely honest. Just because is a very male driven town. But yeah, not to defend the Academy, but I'll take the ticket.
As the only white man in the pod.
Listen, I I will be at the Oscars. I'm not even worried about it. It's going to happen. We'll go as like hosts on the red carpet, or we'll be nominated.
Can we go as like the three raccoons in a trench coat? Could we just all stand on each other and walk
That
into
is
the
an
pod?
impossibly tall raccoon. Dylan alone, who you have to be the base. I'm so sorry. Dylan alone is so tall.
Oh, thank you.
um, if we want to continue with the controversy, we didn't talk about this in our predictions, but best animated feature, best animated feature, Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki, the goat. I think it's deserving to have his last movie be his magnum opus, to be recognized by the Academy, to be recognized worldwide. Not to say that he wasn't recognized before, but to finally, I guess, have that, you know, last thing that makes him a talented artist. Um, I know that there was some pushback as to where Spider-Man, didn't get it. Do you guys have any thoughts or opinion on that?
Well, yeah, I in my personal ballot, I put my vote in for Spider Across the Spider Verse. Um, Once they announced Boy in the Heron, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I am not. That was like my second choice. Um, it was interesting to see that I think it was Shamik Moore, who is the voice of Miles Morales in Into the Spider Verse and Across the Spider Verse, said that they were snubbed. It was like upset about it, and then the internet pushed back and was like, "Shut up, this is Miyazaki," and he was like, "Okay, fair, that's fine." I'm paraphrasing, of course, but yeah, I that totally makes sense. I also think, given how Across the Spider Verse ends, and I'll just take this moment to say, uh, light to medium spoilers, maybe for this whole podcast, this whole episode right now, and maybe podcast. But the with Across the Spider Verse clearly being part one of a two-part story, I get that people aren't like settled or satisfied and like it didn't win. That's totally fine. Now, if
Yeah,
Beyond the Spider Verse doesn't win, I'm upset.
in my screening, like I fucking went to the Academy. I was in Ocean City, Maryland. But when I saw it in a theater, people were mad. Like there was like people were legitimately like, "What? Like this? What?" And it like I've never really experienced that in movies that have like kind of ended in a like cliffhangery way. Um, yeah, same thing. I picked Spider Verse. It won already, right? Didn't the first one win Best Animated?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so it's like okay, yeah, Miyazaki got it. I mean, like it was, to me, it's just like, okay, it was a little bit of an underdog. He didn't even show up, but it was just like
Flex.
yeah, I don't want to fly all the way to another continent. Like I get it, but it was, yeah, to me it was like, wow, whatever.
I mean, the people from Godzilla showed up.
Yeah, I appreciated them holding their little baby
Little
Godzillas.
figures. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the first time it's ever won. Like any Godzilla movie has never won an Oscar. They've never won an effects Oscar or anything.
Huh.
I can't say I'm not surprised. I feel like most
Yeah.
Godzilla movies are kind of meant to not to stay in Japan, but they're not like big critically acclaimed pieces, you know.
Therefore, an audience, and if
Hmm.
people who aren't that audience enjoy it as well, cool. But that isn't the point.
Yeah. Maybe
Well,
this
fuck
will
me, I guess.
start.
Alrighty. Well, I was surprised. I'll take my dumbass opinions and keep them over here.
Yeah, idiot. No, I'm kidding. But good on them. I still I was in a funk when it came out, and I just wasn't in like a movie going mode or like mood. And then when I was, I missed it by like 2 days. I was very upset.
For Godzilla?
Yeah.
That's how I was with Boy and the Heron. I like really wanted to see it, and I like bought tickets to see it like the night that it was supposed to come out, and like something came up, so Davina and I had to like cancel. And then I just never saw it, and I really wanted to.
Wow.
Yeah.
um, let's move over to best supporting actress in a leading role. I think we all agreed.
Here we go.
I think we all agreed that Divine Joy Randolph was gonna easily take this. Sounds like Vaughn, you're gearing up to speak about
Yeah,
it
I
as
am
someone who knows them.
I'm
Name
so
drop.
incredibly proud of knowing Davine personally, having hugged her and like broken bread with her and like having been a friend. No, but seriously, just to watch. I mean, we hear about like folks' journeys, like artists' journeys of like, oh, like I kept pushing and I kept pushing and I had all this determination, but to like have effectively like a front row seat to it. And like I remember seeing her in a play in 2006 and being like, yo, she's the truth. And like I had not yet changed my major to acting, but I was like honestly intimidated. I was like, gosh, I want to do this, but I'm like, can I ever do that? And that sentiment has never left. I just have had a different relationship with the sentiment, in that like I can appreciate her her work so much and her drive and determination. Um, and to know, firsthand that like she's always been a force, but had not always been, especially if just to keep it a buck, you know, uh, a large black woman, um, who's not quiet, isn't going to be like shy away in the corner. That isn't going to necessarily by default rub people the right way. Um, and to watch her continue to push, and to watch her, like I remember when we all heard that she like applied to Yale and like went to the audition, and we were like, "Oh my gosh." And then she got in, and to see her like I remember catching her on I think she had a small part, she had a small recurring role on Empire when that came out, and it was like, yo, and then like watching her show up in these different films and these smaller parts, and then to get the role of Mary in The Holdovers and watch her absolutely destroy all of us emotionally throughout that film. It was so well deserved. And I had to do the math because like who was it? Lupita Nyong'o was the one to like give flowers before the actual before she won. And I had like went back and like did the math. Davine is now the 10th black actress to have won best supporting actress in all of like the over 100-year history.
Wow.
She's now number 10. And that's incredible to see, incredible to know. And like her speech where she talked about not like just this out of body experience and not feeling like wondering who you have to be and like finding the comfort enjoy and being yourself. And I am doing a terrible job at describing her speech, which is why y'all should go back and watch it. But I'm happy for my friend, and to have like also a front row seat to her Facebook story as well during the Oscars was she didn't post a bunch, but she's funny. I'll just say that. Fiend.
I don't really have much else to add. That's not like I can really, top what Vaughn said. I was really happy for her. It was a really cool speech. I think it's really cool when people get emotional on stage, especially when it's like, this is someone that clearly really cares. This means a whole lot to them. And it didn't come off in a way at all where it was like, it didn't feel genuine. Like it, from the moment they said her name, when they were just like naming the nomination, she was like already tearing up. And so it was just really cool.
Yeah, very powerful speech. Um, Highly recommend watching that. Watching all of her acceptance speeches. This is something that we touched on, kind of leading into Best Supporting Actor. Is how grateful someone can be when it comes to being recognized for your work, especially after years and years and years of trial and error, of failure, of rejection, of winning, and then to finally start to be recognized by your peers and by people who people will know your name at the end of the day, and having to climb that. um, I think her speech definitely embodies a lot of that work that goes into trying to break into some sort of industry, as I'm sure each and every one of us has tried at some point or is still currently trying, right? But moving slightly along to the best supporting actor, RDJ, best supporting actor. I didn't like his speech. Um, this is something we touched on, I believe, the episode one with the predictions, right, Vaughn? Every time he's gotten recognized for this, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I deserve it. Oh yeah, what I expect. Kind of like biting that mouth, the hand that feeds you, in a sense. Um, I mean, definitely deserves it. I don't think anybody here could have topped his performance. I think he was his character for the entire 3 hour stint of Oppenheimer. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I liked the speech. I didn't think that it was like amazing. It wasn't my favorite. It did just kind of feel like it wasn't a surprise, and I think that was kind of maybe some of the problem, and like it took a little bit of like air out of it, of just like, we know he's gonna win. I think if he has not won every award, or like at every single one of the awards running into this, he has won the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things of like, there's that I think was kind of the reason why I personally kind of dug the speech, when he was like, "Oh, I want to thank like my rough childhood." Like, I don't know, it was a thing that I thought was kind of like cute and funny, because he did, and so it was just one of those things of, the story for me kind of overshone it. I'm a sucker for like, people like overcoming their addictions. It's a thing that for me I think is really really cool, and so for him to have basically been at the very bottom, Iron Man basically changes his life and brings him back to like the forefront, and then to like circle it back around, and he gives a performance like this. Overall, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. I think there's a part of it that honestly could probably be examined, where he referred to his wife, and he's done this in a lot of his speeches throughout this season. Referred to his wife as his veterinarian, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
um and he has this way of like dehumanizing himself. There's like there's a certain amount of self-deprecation, and for me, some of it lands, like the rough childhood bit. I was like, well, yeah, I get that. And then the veterinarian bit and things like that did not really land for me. um and it honestly, I having never taken a psychology class, let alone have a degree in it, I'm wondering if there's a certain distancing he's doing for the experience to protect himself because of his past and like addiction and all that stuff. Where as long as I make it a joke and it's like whatever, and I'm really aloof about all of it, I'm okay because I made that choice, and you don't actually get to see how I really feel about having achieved in this way. Um, but yeah, I I'm a sucker for sincerity, um, and I just would have wanted some more of that. But I'm happy he won. But well deserved.
I mean, it was his first Oscar, so I would assume when people win their first Oscar, they're a lot more emotional. But if someone who's been in the industry for so long and has had that troubled past, maybe you have a good point there, Vaughn. I wonder if that's something like he's worked on to keep himself better, stay clean.
Yeah.
Definitely an over reliance on charm.
Mm,
Not even like it as like a critique. It's just like that's it just kind of seems that's what his like go-to is. Um yeah.
really good call.
Moving on, do we want to tackle best adapted screenplay?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Because I think this speaks to all of us, honestly. So that was Court Jefferson for American Fiction.
American Fiction.
And his speech is another one I'd say is definitely worth a watch or a read through, listen, what have you. He he specifically called out Hollywood in a really important way, where he talked about how risk averse Hollywood is, and as we talked about just from coming off the heels of this last category, you could tell how gracious he was and how grateful he was. Um, and he specifically talked about how Hollywood is risk averse and how making a $200 million movie is also a risk. And he said, why not, instead of making one $200 million movie, make 10 or 20 $10 million movies or 50 $4 million movies. And he could barely get through like that phrase because everybody in the crowd just erupted in applause. And it's like, yeah, we can take that same lump sum and give so many more people opportunities and chances. I think this was um his first win,
His
second
first
nom though. Um and that was, yeah, it's just incredible to see it. And just that's the kind of work when we talk about or hear about people opening a door or like getting a foot in the door, that work is the like and cracking it open even more for the next person, or like bursting through the doors just like to make sure there's more opportunities for the people who come behind you. And like I know Issa Rae, who incidentally enough is in the film, um, she's like in talks. I've been like seeing rumors around her trying to like get her own studio going because things are going south or sour. I think she's over at HBO, but like that she she also like has all these stories she wants to tell. We all have stories we want to tell, and if only we could get the opportunity. But if we're all fighting for the same one $200 million opportunity, how much easier would it be if they broke that down and gave many more people chances to tell many more stories?
I also think it's worth like noting to that point of how many of these $200 million movies over the last like year or two have failed. Like from
Yeah,
Indiana Jones to some of the Marvel movies, the entire existence of the DCEU, like not these movies don't always work out, and it like the impact of that then is like even more damning. So I really dug his speech. I actually think it was his first. I think this is his first movie. I think before that he'd done like Watchmen. Like I think he wrote on Watchmen and like one other thing.
yeah,
And it was one of those things that when we were talking about adapted, like I had said Oppenheimer, and then I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect American Fiction to be the favorite. And then we were talking about Sterling K. Brown, talking about like how all of the characters are so well written, and then it was like, oh wow, wait, no, this like totally should then just win best screenplay, because like you just know who all of these characters are. They're so well thought out, and the story is, it's believable and real. So I thought it was super deserving. And yeah, the message behind the speech, I don't know anyone that really could disagree with that other than, I don't know, shareholders. But let's be real.
Yeah, and it took it away from Oppenheimer, so I'm on board.
Still won 7.
Relax. Wait, 7 out of 13? Is that right?
13.
Wow.
I was looking at the budgets for Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme. Batgirl was 90 million, Coyote was 70 million. So to Dylan's point about the shareholders, maybe if something, if these executives stop seeing them as risks, and don't even let, if they don't even let a $70 million movie with a beloved franchise like the Looney Tunes see the light of day, then why, I guess, why would they give some unknown director 50 million, 10 million, 5 million, you know? Um, I don't know.
What I would counter with that is look at A24 and Neon. Like, we see that there are ways that you can, if you are smart with your money. It's one of those things of, it's not expensive, it's just harder. It just takes work. But there's absolutely a world where like A24 and Neon are honestly maybe like, if you see that logo in a trailer, or you're going into a movie and you see that logo, you have automatic buy-in that it's going to be quality. And those are studios. It's like, none of those movies are costing all that much. A24 is now trying to like start throwing some money around, and like Neon just did Ferrari, and like throwing a little bit more money around. But so many of those movies are, 1, 2, maybe $5 million max budget wise, and they're consistently, seeing a much higher return on that investment.
Because you'll almost always make it back. Like a part of the reason horror as a genre is so popular and is such a mainstay is because it costs, compared to the box office, nothing to make. Like what was like Get Out, I think cost 4 mil, and it made more than 4 mil. I don't know, a
I
crazy
mean,
number.
Jason Blum has made a career out of spending like 3 pennies and a handkerchief on a movie and making like $100 million.
Yeah, I think the that Winnie the Pooh slasher film, proportionally speaking, is one of the most successful movies out there, because I think they spent less than $1 million, and because of the publicity that they wrote, it made like proportionally like gangbusters, right? I wish someone could give me $1 million to make a movie.
Yeah, the things I would do.
Moving over to original screenplay, Anatomy of a Fall beats out The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I can go first.
Dylan? Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
I think it's really cool that an international like legal drama like won this award. I think it speaks to some of the changes to the Academy, which I think we're going to talk about with a more controversial decision. Um, but it was, I think that in itself was really cool, and the fact that they had like Messi the dog like there, and they were really pushing it like super heavy, because I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie. Like, I think it was, if you didn't see it in theaters, I think it only just hits streaming like this week. It's on one of the streamers, so I think it's one of those things of, it's going to see like a later push. What's the other things that it was up against? I mean, Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. I didn't see all of these movies. I really liked Past Lives. I think I would have thought that Past Lives was going to win. But at the end of the day, I do think it's just kind of cool that something like, you know, something like Anatomy of a Fall, which is a much smaller movie. I think it's cool when these things kind of like get a surprise win.
Yeah, I I only missed May December from this category, and I support the win. Like Anatomy of a Fall was incredible. In my theater when I did see it, was relatively packed. I caught it like at a I think I caught like a 1 o'clock showing, um, and it was absolutely full. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Um,
and
did
I
you
will
guys?
say actually no, hold on, because I just remembered another thing because I'm like at a certain because I had been missing so many key films leading up to the Oscars, like I have to like kind of resort in my mind, like, no, this piece goes with that. No, like no, this was that experience. Anatomy of a Fall did for me, because I don't want him to like come attack me. For me, what Anatomy of a Fall did in the courtroom is exactly what Oppenheimer should have been doing in that courtroom. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The pacing was incredible. They took their time to set it up in the beginning, and once we hit the court, I was in. And that's all I'm gonna say.
There was someone at this Oscars party who was lamenting about the third hour of Oppenheimer, and it took a lot from me to not have a reaction because I like them as a person.
Ooh, we'll chat about that offline. I have to know. Wait, it wasn't me, right?
No.
Okay. I was like, I don't think I talked about Oppenheimer much
And
yesterday.
like I said, I like them as a person, so that was the reason why I wasn't going to talk about it in this moment.
I can't wait till we're done recording.
um, did you what was that you were hinting at, Dylan? Talking about Oscars being controversial,
Oh, I mean, I think the main thing is going to be like the best actress. You know, I think that's a
best
thing that
actress.
Yeah, I
um,
got some heat for that one.
So best actress, Emma Stone.
Emma Stone.
What about her?
It's not that she did. Okay, she was great in the role, and thanks to some of the supplemental materials of like by way of interviews and stuff, I got a chance to understand Bella Baxter a little bit better, or understand Emma Stone's interpretation of Bella Baxter a lot better actually than I initially kind of was able to pull from the film itself. That being said, while I was watching, I did have the question. It's it's different because this is and again this is full spoilers, so skip ahead a little bit, I guess, if you haven't seen it yet. It's different to have like a baby's brain in an adult woman's body, and like for Emma Stone to say like if she had a joy exploring the freedom you get to relearn the world through an adult body, like because of the a lot of the behaviors and how those behaviors, because they're in an adult body, line up with those who are mentally challenged or disabled. That was a big that took it down for me because I kept wondering how often are we going to award actors for playing people who are mentally challenged or disabled. And like yes, Bella has a journey, and by the end she's back to, or the mind and the body are in alignment again in terms of like maturity. But for that reason it felt kind of gimmicky in the same way that like I know we could have bet a decade ago that a movie about an old man like reconciling with his past sins and like coming to terms like an old white man, like saving the day or whatever, is probably going to be a shoe in, or like a war drama is going to be a shoe in. Like, tell an interesting story, which Poor Things did, but give me a different angle than mentally challenged person in terms of what we award. I don't have an issue with the film or her portrayal necessarily, but that portrayal with being awarded the Oscar for Best Actress is troublesome for me. And I kind of get it. Like I would have wanted Lily Gladstone, obviously. I think to act with restraint is more interesting and challenging, but it's tough. I don't know. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think spoilers for Poor Things if you haven't seen it. But the only thing that I could say as like a counter to the acting, with some kind of challenges is like, so Margaret Qualley also is in like a similar situation of like a baby's mind in an adult body, and I think Margaret Qualley is a great actress, but like I think she's noticeably worse than Emma Stone in her scenes. So that was one of the few times when I watched the movie when I was like, oh wow, Emma Stone's like doing a really good job, because like it's not that Margaret Qualley's like bad, but it was just one of those things where I was just like, oh, this is like not the best performance. Um, and I have no issue with Emma Stone winning. I thought she was great and made the movie. She has to be great for that movie to work. And if she's not absolutely amazing, the movie gets like really troubling and weird and uncomfortable, which it already is, like
Yeah.
very quickly. It's one of those things overall of like, even when she won, I saw someone make a meme of like, it looked like when Oppenheimer was like celebrating in the gym and he was just like wide eyed and like not really knowing what to do. Like that was her reaction at first. And then I think, it's both like it's just very emotional. She's one of like, I don't know, it's probably like ten women to ever win like more than one Oscar. So like, it's like not really a laundry list of people. And she's like my age. She's like, like in her, or she's probably like in her mid 30s, but like, so not my
Shots
age, but
fired?
like, yeah, sorry.
Did I catch a stray? What in the
Sorry.
happening here?
She's
I was
35.
like, she's not my age.
Oh,
She's
she's
gotta be
35.
old.
She's 35.
Dang, I didn't know she was 35. But
And there's nothing wrong with being 35. I just
there's
want to also say that
absolutely
out loud.
nothing wrong with being 35. I'm just not even 30 yet. But there's but there's just a piece of it that is like, sometimes in the Oscars you will see like the narrative will win, or like someone will get something, maybe not at the time they necessarily deserve it, but it's the Academy being like, now this is your chance. And like I think about that with like, last year with Jamie Lee Curtis, like I think Stephanie Sue in the same movie was like much better than Jamie Lee Curtis was, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis. She's an icon. So like she's going to get the win. I mean, and unfortunately, a lot of times you do end up seeing this thing like happen for whatever reason. It usually ends up being a white person that is on the like benefit of that to then a person of color. You see the same thing with like, I was like kind of like looking back, like, hey, when has this happened? So like Al Pacino didn't win an Oscar for The Godfather Part 2, and he got it in the 90s, like over Denzel for Malcolm X. And it's just like, it's one of those things of just like sometimes it pulls through, and like you see it like with Leo getting it for like the Revenant of all
Or, yeah,
movies.
the Revenant, sorry.
Yeah, eaten by a bear, it's the same thing. And it's just like spoilers for the Revenant. And it's just one of those things of just like, we're probably going to talk about it more. Like the Academy's gone through a ton of changes, and it's very much not like Oscars so white. Like it isn't in the same scenario now. However, it's just one of those things of, it's just not a good look. That doesn't necessarily mean that Lily Gladstone has to win. That doesn't mean that Lily Gladstone has to win because of that. But it's one of those things of just like, wow, this would have been really cool. What a moment. And instead it's just like, who knows if she's ever going to even get there again, and like what this role kind of meant. It would have just been a really cool story.
Yeah.
I would say, going back to our conversation though about not necessarily, like, if you don't win, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not good, because you're still amongst what is that, five of the best women um, to star in a movie the year before. And while, yeah, you don't get to take home a shiny trophy at home to put on your mantle, you still are recognized to a certain degree for what you did. But I understand the narrative of, you know we gave it to another white woman. Why couldn't we give it to a person of color? Why? What factors drive the decision of the academy? Of the academy, didn't you say, Dylan? There were up to like 10K people or 5K people versus what they were
Yeah, so I can kind of
before.
pull up the stats. So in 2012, so in 2012, the LA Times did a study. So there was 5,000 voters. 94% of the 5,000 voters were white. Of those 5,000 voters, 77% were men, and over half were older than 60. So if you want to make the joke about old white men, I present to you the Academy until the year 2012 and probably after that. In the last few years, I think like it post 2020, post Oscars So White, they have dramatically increased it. So it's like double now. The numbers aren't out there in terms of like what the demographics are. It's just that like they're allowing way more people into the academy. And I think you're seeing, just like with like you're seeing something like Parasite, the first ever non-English speaking movie to win, or like you're seeing like a lot more European movies start to pick up awards. You're seeing something like All Quiet on the Western Front last year, which like I really liked. It's a World War II, drama told in a different way. Like it's not like war porn, it's much more of the opposite. It's an anti-war movie, and like that picked up a ton of awards. You saw The Zone of Interest, which is a brutal watch, like an absolutely brutal watch. That picking up a bunch of surprising awards, and like Yorgos, a Greek filmmaker, but like it was an American movie, like that is now like picking up more awards than you expect. So it's one of those things of like, hey, this is how it changes. This is an example of it changing. I don't know if it's necessarily having the same or maybe like the desired impact. But it's just one of those things of like, this is now much more of a global award. This used to be very much like an American award with like a very particular American demographic of voters. And it just
Yeah.
seems that it's now become just much more somewhat global, mostly like also European, but like somewhat global.
Does
Yeah, I'm
that?
I'm
Oh, yeah,
you
go on.
go.
I was just gonna probe into you know if the academy, for what it stands for. I mean, Hollywood is an American institution, while film and cinema is enjoyed worldwide, and there are very talented, um, directors and writers and actors from different parts of the world. Um, should the Academy then still be the end all be all for what is good and what isn't? I've never really liked the idea of what is good versus what isn't, because that discredits a lot of the effort and a lot of the stuff that isn't in the good category, quote unquote, right? Um, the BAFTAs, that's British, right? The
Hmm.
British something, yeah. Could maybe the creation of another more global entity for critiquing film potentially be the resolution to that, or are people still clinging to the Oscars idea because it's an institution?
I think it's the institution bit, and what I was gonna share also is that there, we're looking at a piece of the world in terms of like how humans create film and then enjoy that film. The Oscars is an American institution, and as such, like the Academy, all if probably 99% American, but the idea that it's now more open and more global, and to your point, like more European specifically, that also then begs the question if I'm sure some of those over 60, 77% male, 94% white Academy members. I'm sure some of them have passed on, but a lot of them are still here. Like, just to be honest, and th- that means we still have there's still work to do, because it's the way we rate things. Because this goes back to the first question we had about the Oscars in the first place, which is what makes a thing the best. Sometimes the votes are going to land in a way that preserves your ideal and your idea of worth. So that's going to mean that the white thing wins over the person of color, or the male centered story is going to win over whatever else. And if even like, to go from 5 to what now 10K members in the academy, if those 5K all hunker down, all it takes is one person from the new 5 to agree with the old guard, and the old guard still has it. Like, the Oscars is still so white, technically speaking. So it's, I think this does speak to the changes we're seeing. And when I was in grad school, I'm trying to say this as like chill as possible. When I was getting my master's degree in acting, um, I worked
We
on a
get it.
play. I know things. I worked on a play that talked about art, like literally the art world, and it was set in the UK. And there was a recurring character. Actually, this is really poignant. The more I think about it, there was a recurring character who kept coming in, who was Greek, and he was so exotic, and everybody was like really in awe of him, but in a way that he was kind of like being fetishized and like artistically. And it the play begs the question, like, what is European? Because obviously everybody in Europe, shares a skin tone for the most part, beach towns notwithstanding. But the the idea that, like, we can choose how white a thing is, or how European a thing is. We can choose when and what counts. It's interesting to see, like, now that we're talking, Oscars so white and they want to diversify. Now we have, Yorgos Lanthimos, who did Poor Things from this year, The Lobster, which was 2015. Same year, The Favorite back in 2018. So we are seeing that diversity pop out more, which is really incredible. But they're like, this is all to say that, like, the work is not done, and I'll leave it there.
And even like looking into it, just because it's not easy to get these like stats. It basically seems like the Academy is like announcing every year, like, oh hey, we brought in 1,000 new people and like 46% were women or something like that. So like people have kind of gone through, and it now appears that 33% are women. So that's kind of like, it's not changed at all, because 76% were men, and now it's
Yeah.
seems like it's 77. So if anything, it's actually slightly gone up. But then the other thing is that it is now only 81% white. So like that's a decent change in, like,
Yeah,
not too much of a time to drop it by, you know, to over 10%, 13%. Like that's a pretty decent swing, but that's going to take years. It's going to take years to make that even look like, moderately, you know, not a crazy super majority.
yeah, and
is there
equitable.
a is there
Yeah,
a criteria to get into the academy?
I think you have to like have stuff published. Like if you're an actor, you have to be in like X amount of like movies. Same thing. Like if you're a writer, you need to have like this many, you know, screenplays, whatever. But I
Hmm.
don't know the like full breakdown of it.
hmm.
Because that'll probably contribute to why it's so white, you know?
Like, if the only way to get into the academy is to be like recognized by the academy,
Hmm.
in a way, nasty work.
Um, guess a couple more categories that we can get to getting
Oh,
back
this
on the
is weird.
horse.
I'm
What's
looking
weird?
into it.
The Academy?
Uh, yeah, so it's by sponsorship, not application. So candidates must be sponsored by 2 Academy members from the branch, um, and then anyone that gets an Academy Award nominee automatically becomes a member.
Vaughn, you're friends with Dave Vine. You just need another member of the Academy to sponsor you, and then you're in.
Yeah, we got an inside man.
Yeah.
I'll work on it by this time next year, I guess. Although, okay.
Oh, oh.
Sorry. The gears are spinning and they shouldn't be, and this is fine. But I think I can make this work.
If you hang out at enough equinoxes, like if you get enough day passes, like in West LA, you'll figure it out. Like you'll be good.
Yeah, just go to an air one and just walk around. I'm sure you'll bump into somebody.
For sure, actually. My yeah, my ex has a story about meeting who is it? Maya Hawk. And just like and her being super chill and like was looking like asking about some of the products in the store and was like, yeah, my mom says I should X, Y, and Z. Like her mom's not Uma Thurman.
Remember when Lil Nas X walked by us at Ant-Man?
You guys saw Little Nas X?
Yeah. I didn't. I
it-
saw his bodyguard. Because his bodyguard is the most terrifying man I've ever seen in my entire life and looked like he was going to break me in half. And I was more focused on that than just the random guy that was apparently Little Nas X.
And Lil Nas X is just a name. That man is like 6'4" or something.
He's
like
taller than me,
tall.
much taller than me. And I was just like, and he was wearing like combat boots too on top of it. And so he was just like, he was very tall.
I want to give a huge recognition to the Godzilla team for best visual effects. But I think the last couple categories, I'll go to Oppenheimer. Director, picture, and actor. Dylan, you have the floor, I guess.
Appreciate it. Thank you. First off, I want to recognize Cillian Murphy as being the first ever Irish-born actor to win at least a Best Actor. I'm not sure what other of the acting noms have gone to people that are Irish, but he's the first Irish-born actor to get an Academy Award. I'm pretty sure that is true. I didn't do my due diligence, but
I'm on it.
Yeah. So that to me was like very, very special. And he is someone that is like just so pro Ireland. So like that's a thing that for me I really, really appreciated. So that I was super happy with. He deserved it. It's a 3-hour movie. He's in almost every single scene. The script is written from his perspective. If he is not perfect, that movie does not work. And it's, I think an unbelievable performance. And now there's talks that he's going to like play James Bond, which I don't see how that can work. And I don't really know if that's a good casting, but like, hey, if he gets the bag, all for it. I'm all for someone of Irish descent, like becoming the UK's like biggest cultural impact. That is a really good payback for centuries of rule. So it's one of those things of I can get behind it, although I don't actually honestly love that casting. It won for best score, which makes sense because if there are certain scenes that the score is the only reason why that works, like the Can You Hear the Music scene, if that is not maybe the best piece of cinematic score ever written, that scene doesn't really hit. And that song carries it at times. And then, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really surprising that it won Best Director or Best Picture. It's won basically everywhere else. I was actually expecting Nolan to almost get a little more emotional because he got kind of emotional at the Golden Globes, but I think that was kind of the moment where he might have like realized this was going to happen. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy that he won. It's one of those things of like, it's kind of weird that this is the movie where he finally won, but also I'm happy that this is the one because I think this is a really like impressive feat with what he did. And shout out for Al Pacino for kind of like fumble. I don't know if it was a fumble or like whatever it was when he just like just read out the best picture and was just like, I'm seeing Oppenheimer, and it was just like, did did you win, or did you just like did you just read the first thing on the nominations? So I didn't want to have another like Moonlight scenario where like all of a sudden, you know, I don't know, Maestro's winning and now like Bradley Cooper is, you know, finally getting his Oscar or something.
Mid speech and was like, no, actually, we got this wrong.
Yeah.
I did look it up, by the way. First Irish actor to win the award, and that was from the Irish Times, so you know it's real.
Got to be real. Shout out Irish Times. Great outlet.
And you're saying that the Oscars aren't diverse, huh?
Do not even get me started. Do not even get me started.
I am by no means am I going to try to pretend that the plight of Irish people is as bad. I'm just happy for where my family came from. Okay. Where one half of my family came from.
Amen. Yeah, no, I've made my peace a long time ago. I was not I preferred other films that were out this year, but again, this is all subjective. Like best means what exactly? And for the 10K people who saw it, at least 5,001 of those people. Actually, no. It could have been as few as 1,001 people voted for uh Oppenheimer to win, which is great. Um yeah, I think it's a bit of a catch-22, like as you talk about like Nolan's reaction for best director, uh because this is award season, like before I was involved in this world, I just kind of like, oh, the Oscars are on, like somehow a month after the Super Bowl, here's another like big thing that happens on TV, let me watch it. But now that I'm invested in this world, people been at this for 2 months now and like have been giving, if not the same speech, variations of their speech. So it kind of has made more sense to me now that like sometimes Oscar speeches are oddly short, and I'm like, hey, you worked your whole career for this and that's all you had to say. It's like, well, no, you said it, you said everything you had to say in the last 6 ceremonies, so like you're tapped. I get it. um but yeah, I shout out to Oppenheimer, and shout out to, if we're kind of putting a bow on Oscars in general, just shout out to everybody who won. Shout out again to Cord Jefferson and that comment. I'm a fan of stories. I'm a storyteller first. Actor is just the most appropriate names for people to understand that through. And if we can get more people out there telling their stories, if we as a pod can get one of those $4 million, one of the 54 million movies, let's do it. Like let's like take that risk and know that it'll benefit you in the end.
Into the studio Shark Tank.
I'll even take the $1 million movie.
I'll take the $500,000
The
movie.
500,000, the $250,000 movie. I really only need about $10,000.
I need a camera. Just give me. Just let me go to Best Buy.
Get him a phone. Get him an iPhone.
I also we didn't talk about it. Jimmy Kimmel, when he like kind of like shouted out all the like behind the scenes people, because all of their like contracts are now up and now all of them are going to have discussions, and like everyone stood up and started clapping, and like he made the joke where he was like, if you're wearing Skechers while like standing and clapping, like take notice, because I think it's one of those things of like, yes, the writers got their big thing, the actors got their big thing, and it's like that's only half of it. This is still very much an industry town, and there's plenty of people that were out of work for months and months and months that worked in other areas of Hollywood that aren't as glamorized. And so it's just one of those things of like, that's another thing I just wanted to shout out. And, it could, have further implications this year. There's already been so many movies that have been moved around that it's just something to highlight also.
I kind of want to wrap it up by saying favorite movie. out of the Best Picture nominees because again we knew Oppenheimer was going to take it. We made our peace. Um, you know what? I'm still going to give it to Past Lives. Um, it just resonates with something with me personally. Just the narrative of what it is. That concept of in yun, just something really hit me. I don't know. It's probably my favorite on the list. Vaughn.
I'm gonna go. I was in between Past Lives and the film I'm gonna go with, which is American Fiction. Um, I just appreciated the storytelling. The people felt so real, jumping out of the screen almost. It was absolutely incredible to see, and just the idea that there is there is the you, and then there is the palatable and marketable version of you, and how do you reconcile that is such a fascinating journey to watch.
I know this is going to be a surprise,
Hmm.
but I'm going to say that Oppenheimer was my favorite movie of the year. Actually, so sorry, that was my second favorite. The other one was the 4 minutes where Ryan Gosling was performing "I'm Just Ken" live at the Oscars.
I'm surprised, Dylan. Actually,
um, well, that was the After School Cinema Club's very first Oscar reactions. Do you guys have anything you want to tie us off with? Anything you want to let the audience know?
um, I'm thinking the window will have closed by the time this is out for public consumption. But if you can't get to a theater to see it, definitely catch Origin. It's incredible.
I'll try to get it out by tomorrow to make sure as many people can see it if it's still in theaters.
You heard it
Yeah,
here first. He's getting it out tomorrow.
I don't have it. It's hey, if unless some medical emergency happens, there's no reason why I shouldn't. That's just all I'll say. Yeah.
cool.
And
Just knock
also,
on some
just
wood real
right
quick.
now, I just want to throw my hat in for Dune Part Two winning the 2024 or 2025, I guess, Oscars.
And see, folks, that is exactly, you see, like, God works in so many mysterious ways. Um, Looks like the war has started early between Dylan and I. I'm Team Origin. He's Team Dune. We'll see. And there's going to be I'm going to feel a sense of personal victory as well if Dune takes it, um, because of its narrative and reception, from the Academy. But my money's on Origin.
Jose,
um, I don't know. We'll have to see. I have to see what the calendar for the rest of the year is. I mean, we're only in March. You really going to give it to Dune so early in the year?
it's a couple things. There's just not a lot of movies that are going to come out this year, I think, because of the
Yeah,
strike. So like that's kind of
yeah.
like the first thing. There's definitely going to be stuff that comes out that either we weren't expecting, or there's definitely going to be some surprises and some late pushes and like some smaller indie stuff that none of us really necessarily see, or like see coming, I should say. Other than like maybe Paul Thomas Anderson's movie, just like if it's got Leo and Kiki Palmer, seems to be a heist movie. Like that sounds really interesting. And he is someone where the Academy does seem to kind of somewhat like him. But we'll see if the first Dune won 6 Oscars, which even though I think I might like it more than Part Two. Part Two is getting much better reviews. It could happen. It could happen.
And in Dylan's defense, which is not a phrase I intend to say often, uh, I've bet my money on a film that came out in January. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. We are trying to get these out um, with relevant movies coming around the corner. If you missed anything, be sure to check those out in our channel box. Dylan, you want to send us home?
Sure. Yeah. Class dismissed.